The End of Memory. Chapter 1. Wake Up in the Fog. The white ceiling swayed in front of her eyes, as if with a slight ripple. Yakinjian's eyes slowly focused, and her eyelids were heavy as if they had been filled with lead. The smell of the hospital, the smell of disinfectant, and an indescribable sense of strangeness made her subconsciously want to grab something, but she found that her mind was blank, names, memories, and pasts were erased by an invisible hand. She's awake. A low voice came from the side, calm, indifferent, with a hint of displeasure. Yakinjian subconsciously turned her head and saw a man standing by the hospital bed, tall, dressed neatly, well-defined, with a cold aura of alienation between her eyebrows and eyes. But the fine sunlight sprinkled on him through the blinds, and the golden light fell on his shoulders and face. She squinted her eyes and came to a conclusion in her mind, it looks good. But she didn't know him. The patient is in stable condition, but it is recommended to rest more. The doctor said softly, holding the medical record book in his hand. The man just nodded, his eyes swept to the back of Yakinjian's hand, and his expression tightened imperceptibly. I'll wait for you outside. He whispered to the doctor. The doctor nodded in response, and he turned around and stood by the window, his shoulder line looking tougher in the golden light and shadow. Yakinjian felt a little dizzy, she wanted to reach out and touch the man's shoulder, but her fingers had just been raised and weakly lowered. My mind was blank, but I wondered who he was. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 2. Unfamiliar Familiarity. A few days later, Yakinjian's body gradually recovered. She lived in a ward, and men appeared every day, always standing in silence in the corner or sitting by the window, looking through the materials in her hands, occasionally frowning. She gradually realized that whenever someone approached him, his eyes would instantly become cold, as if he was on guard. That kind of unapproachable aura made people feel awe, and it also inadvertently aroused an indescribable curiosity. Once, she couldn't help but say, Do you come here every day? The man raised his eyes as clear as glaciers, but with a hint of imperceptible emotion, yes. The voice was low but did not explain more. Yakinjian felt inexplicably throbbing in her heart, she reached out and touched her forehead, her mind was still blank. But strangely, she had an indescribable familiarity with this man, like having seen it countless times in a dream. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 3. Loss and Undercurrents. After Yakinjian returned home, her memory was still blank. Life is like a blank sheet of paper, but the man's shadow is like ink, indelible. His name, past, and even his relationship with her were all locked away in the back of his mind, like a deep sea locked under ice. Late at night, she flipped through the photos on her phone and accidentally saw a photo of a man's profile, with the sunset on the beach in the background. He frowned slightly, his eyes as if he had traveled through time and space and stared into the distance. He in the photo is so familiar that it is distressing. There was a sudden knock outside the door, and Yakinjian's heart tightened. The door opened, and it was him. You're here again. She blurted out subconsciously, with a strange and familiar feeling in her tone. The man stood at the door, his hands in his suit pockets, and looked cold. What do you remember? Yakinjian shook her head, I don't remember anything. He frowned slightly, turned around and sat down, and said in a low tone, this matter. It's not just about amnesia. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 4. Fragments of Memory. In the days that followed, Yakinjian began to notice that fragments occasionally appeared in her mind. The sea breeze brushed against her face, and he held her hand, and she felt a surge of warmth. It was raining at night, and she was holding an umbrella, and someone followed silently under it, with a tall back. At the table, he always saved the dish she liked for last. Each fragment is like a glimmer of light, illuminating the blank darkness, yet blurry enough to be put together. She began to think that he must be guarding herself somewhere, but why was she so indifferent? Why don't you talk? Once, she couldn't help but ask, Do you know? I seem to have known you for a long time. He was silent for a long time and finally whispered, no. This word, like a heavy lock, was buckled in her heart, and it also caused a throbbing in her heart. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 5. The undercurrent is turbulent. Just when Yakinjian thought that life would be peaceful, an accident happened. The hospital's medical records were tampered with, and unknown markings were left outside her home. Someone is staring at you. the man said in a low voice, his eyes as cold as a knife. Yakinjian's eyes widened, horror and confusion intertwined. Why? I just lost my memory. Did I do anything? He stood up and walked up to her, and the golden dappled light and shadow fell on his shoulder. Because of you, you know too many things. Even if you forget, they won't let you go. Yakinjian's heart sank suddenly, and the blank space in her mind suddenly seemed to be cut by a sharp blade. Amnesia was not just an accident, but more like an arrangement to protect her. Chapter 6 The Edge of Memory. To protect her, he takes her out of the city and goes to a hidden town. The town is full of antiquity, the lights in the alleys flicker and dim, and the street corners occasionally sound strange music, like the call of another world. Yakinjian walked on the stone road and felt inexplicably familiar in her heart. She suddenly stopped and pointed to a small shop in front of her. I think I've been here before. The man approached her and whispered, you have indeed been here many times. These are all your past, but you have forgotten them for the time being. Yakinjian's heart trembled, and more fragments began to appear in her mind. Someone once walked through the alley with her in his arms on a rainy night. Someone once held an umbrella for her on the beach and said, don't be afraid, I'm here. Every clip overlaps with the man in front of you. Chapter 7 Memory Reboot. One night, Yakinjian had a dream. In the dream, she was standing side by side with the man on the edge of the cliff, the wind rolling up the sea mist, and the rolling waves in front of her. He held her hand and whispered, no matter what happens, I won't let you go. When she woke up, her forehead was soaked, her brain tingled, and then the whole past poured out like a torrent. She remembered the experiences she shared with him, laughing, crying, arguing, hugging, and even guarding each other in times of danger. So, I really know you. She muttered to herself, tears slipping down. The man held her hand, and a rare softness flashed in his eyes. Finally. You remember? Yakinjian leaned against his chest, listening to his low and powerful heartbeat, and felt warm in her heart. Chapter 8 Guardian in the Dark. As memories recover, danger looms again. The person who had tampered with the medical records appeared again in an attempt to kidnap Yakinjian. The man showed his true strength without hesitation, and his cold face was as unshakable as an ice sculpture in the dark night. His every step was carried with momentum, as if the night was making way for him. Yakinjian clenched her fists and felt her strength in danger for the first time. Even if she lost her memory, she was no longer a fragile existence. He pulled her into his arms and whispered, come with me, don't be afraid, this time, I won't allow anyone to hurt you. Chapter 9 Memory and the Future. After the battle, Yakinjian and the man stood on the top of the high-rise buildings in the city. The sunset reflected on his face, and the golden light jumped. She looked at him and smiled. I finally remember. It turns out that our story, it has never been broken. He gently took her into his arms and whispered, from now on, no matter how dark the world is, my arms will always be your harbor. Yakinjian leaned on his shoulder, feeling the breeze blowing, her heart full of peace of mind and anticipation. The fog of the past has cleared, and they will write together in the days to come. The golden sunlight shone on the two of them, like painting the last light on fate. Chapter 10 The Vision of the Night. The night was deep. Yakinjian sat by the window, her mind echoing with the memories she had just recovered. The city lights outside flickered, but they couldn't dispel the uneasiness in her heart. Outside the window, a black shadow swept across the sky, like black smoke swept up by the wind, silent but with a strange atmosphere. Yakinjian's brows furrowed, and a sound of alarm bells rang in her heart. Someone is coming. A deep voice sounded behind her, and she turned her head to see the man come out of the shadows, his shoulders blurred with a cold arc by the dappled lights. They looking for me? She muttered to herself. The man didn't answer directly, just put his hand gently on her shoulder, his eyes penetrating the night, as if he could see into everything in the dark. Follow me. His low and steady voice was like a chain, making her irresistible. Chapter 11 The City of Illusions. The two walked through a narrow alley to an abandoned factory. The inside of the factory was filled with purple-black smoke, and between the light and shadow, there was a low whisper in the air, like thousands of souls telling secrets. Here. It was like in a dream. Ye Qingjian felt dizzy. The man reached out and held her hand. Don't be afraid, this is the illusion they laid down. As long as I'm here, you won't get hurt. The smoke suddenly formed countless distorted shadows, and the blurred human figure fluttered around, whispering, She is our key. She can't wake up. Ye Qingjian's heart beat faster, her soul seemed to be being pulled. She felt an unprecedented fear, but she was stabilized by the man's presence. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 12 Disordered Memories. Shadows in the illusion began to attack her consciousness, and fragmented memories were mercilessly torn apart. Ye Qingjian seemed to return to the painful moment of the past. A night chased by darkness. The moment of being betrayed and misunderstood. The edge of life and death experienced with men. She felt cold all over her body and almost collapsed. The man hugged her tightly and whispered in his ear, Hold me, even if the whole world collapses, I won't let go. Ye Qingjian held his hand and suddenly realized that these phantoms were not only enemies, but also part of her lost memories. She closed her eyes, allowing her soul to blend with Zai Xian's light, and the fragmented memories returned like a torrent. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 13 The Duel Between Light and Shadow. As the memory gradually became clear, the shadow in the illusion turned into countless black tentacles, tearing apart the space and shaking the entire factory. Ye Qingjian clenched her fists, and the light of her soul burst out in her body, forming a golden curtain of light to resist the attack. The man's sword light flickered, intertwined with her light, and instantly cut the phantom apart. You are no longer just a victim. The man's voice was low and powerful, you have the power to protect yourself, and you can also protect our future. Ye Qingjian took a deep breath and her eyes were firm, no more fear. Light and shadow collided in the ruins, and the huge energy shook the entire city night sky, like a breath between heaven and earth. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 14 The Truth Revealed. After the illusion dissipated, Ye Qingjian finally saw the man's true identity. He was the former secret protector and the key to her amnesia. He had been silently guarding her to prevent her from falling into the hands of dark forces. I have amnesia. You've been protecting me? She asked in surprise. The man's eyes were complicated, and he lowered his head slightly, yes. Even if you forget, I can't let go. Because you, to me, are more important than anything else. Ye Qingjian felt a shock in her heart, and memories and emotions came together. The scattered past and the protection of the present seemed to be connected to everything. What about the future? She asked softly. The man reached out and gently stroked her cheek, with a rare softness in his eyes. The future, from now on, will be written by us together. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 15 The Symphony of Destiny. As the truth is revealed, the dark forces are completely dismantled and the city returns to peace. Ye Qingjian regained her life, but she was no longer alone. Every morning, she opened her eyes, and the sun outside the window was dappled down, and he was always by her side. Every time danger approaches, she knows that he will always be her guardian, and she is no longer just a protected character, but a force that can fight side by side. The two stood on top of the high-rise building, the sunset reflected, and the city was like a golden ocean. Ye Qingjian held his hand and smiled, our story has never been broken. The man lowered his head and gently hugged her into his arms, no matter what lies ahead, my arms will always be your harbor. The golden sunlight shone on the two of them, reflecting the darkness they walked through together, and also illuminating the infinite possibilities of the future. Chapter 16 The Shadow Reappears. The night was like ink. Ye Qingjian and the man returned to the apartment in the city. The lights outside the window were calm, but she still felt a little uneasy in her heart. Those illusions. Is it really over? She asked in a low voice. The man leaned against the window, his eyebrows were cold, his eyes like a sharp blade sweeping through the city. The darkness never really disappeared, it just lurked and waited for the moment. At this moment, a strange aura came from the other side of the city, and the black smoke twisted like a living creature. Ye Qingjian felt her soul shake, and the energy of the Zixuan light in her hand trembled slightly. Someone is staring at you. The man whispered, his steps steady like a cheetah, this time, we must take the initiative. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 17 Underground Labyrinth. The man took Yakinjian to the underground labyrinth under the city, which was full of ancient mechanisms and bizarre illusions, and the air smelled of metal mixed with mist. Here? Yakinjian asked in surprise. The hideout of the dark forces. The man's voice was low and cold. We must find the source, otherwise they will control you again. In the maze, the shadows are constantly deforming, like countless pairs of eyes staring at them. Yakinjian felt her heart beat faster, but the man's presence calmed her down. Follow me. He reached out to hold her hand, warm and powerful, locking her fear like a chain. The two walked side by side, light and shadow intertwined in the maze, Zixuan's light and sword light intertwined, forming a dazzling light path that illuminated the unknown path. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 18 The Lord of Darkness. In the depths of the maze, a tall figure appeared, his aura pressing on the entire space, and countless pairs of eyes seemed to be staring at them in the black mist. You're finally here. The Dark Lord's low voice was as shocking as a crack in the earth. The man pulled out his long sword, and the sword body flashed with dark purple light. This time, I won't let you hurt her again. Yakinjian clenched her fists, and the light of Zixuan burst out in her hands, as if it merged with the sword light, forming a light curtain intertwined with gold and purple. The Lord of Darkness sneered, and the black mist around him instantly turned into countless tentacles and attacked the two of them. The collision of light and shadow shook the entire maze, and the space seemed to be torn apart. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 19 The Power of Resonance. Yakinjian closed her eyes. The memory and the power of light in the depths of her soul were fully awakened, and she felt the spiritual resonance between herself and the man. We. Together. She whispered. The man's eyes were soft, and he reached out to hold her hand, always. The two of them worked together, and the light exploded to the extreme, like the heavenly river pouring down. The tentacles of the Lord of Darkness turned to ashes in the light, and the entire maze trembled continuously. Finally, with a loud noise, the Lord of Darkness fell with a bang. The black mist in the space was dispelled by the light, and the maze returned to tranquility. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 20 A Harbor of Light. After the battle, Yakinjian and the man stood at the exit of the maze. The morning light shone outside, and the golden light shone on them. This time, the darkness is finally really gone. The man whispered, his eyes falling on her, with an unprecedented softness. Yakinjian smiled, her heart full of peace of mind. I'm no longer afraid because you are by my side. The man took her into his arms and whispered, no matter how treacherous the road ahead, my arms will always be your harbor. The figures of the two stretched out in the morning light. The city was like a golden ocean, the breeze was blowing, and their story also ushered in a bright chapter. Underscore 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 un. Postscript The Rebirth of Memory. Yakinjian's amnesia once made her confused and fearful, and also made her think that loneliness was unbearable. But under the protection of the man, she regained her memories and found herself. Although the darkness is deep, light and protection are always present. From strange to familiar, from confused to determined, their stories tell us. Memories can disappear, but protection and love are real. No matter how deep the darkness is, as long as you are accompanied, you can go to the light. Loss and recovery are not only processes, but also growth and rebirth. Yakinjian leaned into the man's arms and thought with a smile, this time, I finally got everything back in the future. The golden sun shone on the two of them, and their story was bright and complete from then on.